I paint about the outer life or the outer appearance and the inner kind of beingness, you know, and I think the conflict in that, or the discrepancy, is something I find very, very moving, because it's obviously not, you know, unique to me. This is what, you know, goes for all people. But for me to sort of like, as a foreigner in a different kind of culture, is something that I totally feel at home with it, and yet, of course, when it really comes down to it, I'm not. And the slightly not feeling at homeness, I think, is sort of like suits my nature, but also is a source of where I work from. I was an abstract painter till about the 90s. And through a personal crisis, I mean, my mother died, my father had already died, and it was really from, oh, who am I actually, if, you know, your point of resistance is gone. I had to sort of like at once scrabble my life together. I was middle-aged and I was like, oh God, you know, I don't even know who I am anymore. And that kind of, I think, psychological, emotional kind of reaction, I saw that I made paintings about my mother and myself, being sort of in a way at that time, my memory of my mother was that she was middle-aged, and of course I had middle-aged, and it was this her mask or my mask kind of question. And I really I just opened the floodgate of paintings and have been sort of figurative ever since. A lot of my work comes out of my own experience. It is not autobiographical, but something I experience, I paint about, right? I'd broken up with a lover, and so this was this kind of how to be erotic. Where does your eroticism go if it is not animated or by somebody else? And I don't mean just self-satisfaction, it is much more complex than that. And so a whole series of works of women on mattresses, which of course, because, you know, I was a mistress, I wasn't really even a lover. A lot of my women are quite sort of outspoken in the paintings. They look straight at you, they have sort of think, et voila, you have to take me how I am. To see, put these two together, so these are two very closely together, and they are sort of like about women sitting on a mattress in a way solitary. They not relate to anything outside themselves. They don't even sit and wait, they just sit and be. And I find this kind of state of suspension, the kind of tension of really that the past and the future are both sort of like not very real. I find this very moving. It is a sort of, so the subject matter in a lot of my work is the suspension between two states, and yet it is totally grounded because of the flesh. It is the sensuality of the skin, which I just, like there's nothing which they can hide behind, you know, like my jacket or like my hair. They haven't got anything, they haven't got any props, they're just there. In a way with painting, I set myself problems. Which, you know, I have to find a solution for how to make them work, right? And so this is, for instance, two paintings. I'm still on the mattress kind of bit, but, you know, they have a horizontal figure. And at once these voyeurs came in. I think, like a lot of artists, I'm a voyeur in so far. I don't do the peeping Tom thing and all that, but I look at people, and I like this looking at, without in a way thinking that I'm observed. You know, I look at people's eye sockets, I see the weight, how a leg is on an ankle. I have times I sort of like, I'm totally fascinated by shoulder joints, you know. But of course there is also, and I think especially for women, they have half of their life they are just looked at. Although it's flattering, and in the beginning it gives you a sense of identity from, oh, at least I'm seen, which you might not be as a child. You're not really seen, you're just a child. It also gives a sense of isolation. You know, you're an object of desire, but you're not really seen for what you are. And so from the, you know, there is sort of like, I wouldn't say it's a comic strip in pictures, but there is sort of a sequential, you start with one emotion, of course, a bit like philosophy, you go from one thought into the next one. And then, okay, so then something came up which I'd never done before, and it is to paint men. Somehow, I think the curiosity came up that I actually never looked at the man without that desire, just to sort of like stand still and try to figure out what what is this kind of totally what I don't know anything about? And so the whole series of men is sort of like, this is one of them. And they are slightly, you know, they're sort of like, I'd say, they're not really active. You know, the women in a way, you know, strange enough, they look a lot more active, but these are just sort of like sitting still in a way as, for me, an object of curiosity, to sort of see, try to figure out what makes them tick, and they should move, because, you know, then I get too much information. And it has this, but they are sort of self-contained, they're totally drawn within themselves, instead of like being out and being, say, you know, kings of the world or something. And they're naked, they haven't got anything except one, you know, the little bit spiky. So they have either a spiky mattress, that one, again, of a young boy. He has, I'd say, you know, kind of around his hips, a wire of barbed wire. You know, I always like a little bit of pain with things. It just sort of like, it's not that I have a particular masochistic nature or say this, but I think with paintings you need, it's not just about beauty, there's a slight edge in things. There is an edge in which, because you paint out of that edge. What I also do is my etching, and etching is, I only work black and white. Mostly the drawings I make in the night, and you know, the whole alchemy of biting, you know, this acid, which I love. I saw a fantastic drawing by Rembrandt in the Dulwich where, you know, the preaching of John the Baptist, diagonal to John the Baptist. In the left-hand corner downstairs, you have two dogs fornicating. Now, this really is Dutch. I mean, I think it's absolutely wonderful. So you go from the light and darkness, and you have all these people in the crowd being up to something. So I thought, okay, I'm going to do something like that. Well, I'm not, of course, anywhere a master like Rembrandt, but the idea to sort of say, okay, I put a whole crowd of people together. Everybody is there because of one act, either of violence or sexuality. But while they're there, then they're up to their own kind of little world. So these are called ways of the world. I have to find some glasses, otherwise I can't see anything. I can't point something out, sorry if I don't have any glasses on. Right, so ways of the world. So this is actually the figure of John the Baptist. He, in a way, lost his head because he didn't want to look at Salome. I know it was a bit more complicated than that, but the not wanting to look at her was his undoing. So the whole scene is, although, you know, it is sort of like held together with everybody up to something, as you say, which is either slightly violent or sexual, but also I think it's quite funny. They have a lot of funny kind of details in it. And a lot of them have, say, references to either the Old Testament, you know, Lot and his wife, Lot and his daughters, Jael and Sisera and all that. And it's not that I know the Old Testament so well, it's just I know Baroque paintings and drawings. And when I see an image I like, I'm going to check out which story it is. And then, of course, the story is often, although they're quite violent, they're quite contemporary as well, I think. You know, they are about, say, the psychology of behavior. I have also objects like these kind of things. You know, which I either buy or get, you know, and I find sort of like, this is a real skull, obviously, but, you know, these are sort of like objects which I don't use straight away in my drawings, but they delight me. I think they have a sort of like the askew view on the world. And then I have sort of things sometimes which end up on the wall. Like, you know, I have a weakness for colanders. Don't ask me why. I have several colanders. I paint them. I draw them, you know, in my etchings they come up, in my paints they come up. I think they're wonderful objects and they just fascinate me. This image actually was the start of the Crowd series. This is a woman, I think somewhere in the South Americas, and she was a highway robber. She robbed people, a bus of people from their goods, and they then dragged her out. They arrested her and doused her with petrol and were going to set her afire. And then the police prevented that. But the whole crowd here you feel sorry for the woman, but she was actually, you know, a nasty piece of goods. Now, I'm not saying this is the kind of punishment, but I find this kind of like coming together, the single person versus the crowd. I just find interesting. Any kind of things which gives sort of like a mental or a kind of a view of the world which is slightly off the regular, off the predictable. I just, yeah, energizes me, I guess. You know. Although I am ambitious and I like to have fun, I like to sort of do good shows with people. You know, I would love to show with Kiki Smith, for instance. But, you know, the future is not half as interesting as the present. You know, so we'll see. I just really, the only thing I want to become a better and better painter each time, even if it's only a tiny bit. And things will happen from there. Yeah. And if not, well, I've just had the fun of trying.